G'day boys, we're just going to have a look at an answer for question 23B, which was the 12 marker you can see here from the sports medicine option. So the question asks you to analyse the procedure involved in determining if an athlete is ready to return to play. So obviously the syllabus point it's referring to is return to play, as you can see that here, and these are the 6 areas of the return to play dot point straight from the syllabus. Now, anytime you get a question on return to play, you must specifically mention each of these 6 areas. Some of you just gave a general talk about an athlete returning to play. You didn't specifically mention any of the headings, so you didn't indicate that you were actually a student of the course, and you didn't refer to specific things, you just referred to a general broad range of areas. So the first thing you need to do whenever you see a question like that is say, okay, return to play, what are the areas involved in that dot point? Because if you don't have those specific areas, you won't be able to get the top marks. So let's now have a look at this answer. And you can see here, he's written it starts here with the procedures involved. He's just written a little intro spiel listing the 6 procedures. Don't necessarily have to do that. It's nice to have it there, and if you've got the time, you can do that, but it's not completely necessary. I'll put a little red line here. That signifies pretty much, where he starts picking up marks from. If he did that, and that was his whole answer, he'd probably get 1 out of 12. So we look here, the first thing is the indicators for readiness for return. So you can see here, I put a little 1 there, that's the first heading he's done. And he's stated what they are. I'll just slowly scroll through this. I'm going to make it a bit smaller for you, so that you can actually just see what he's written. You can even pause the video if you want. He's gone through it, he's given specific examples, he's analysed it, which means he's relating cause and effect. So what happens if we're talking about indicators for readiness, what are they and how do they relate to returning to play? So what's the relationship between having a pain-free movement of the joint and returning to play? And obviously the relationship is, if your movement is relatively pain-free, then that's a good indicator that you're ready to return to play. So he's done that, and you can see he's really gone into some detail for this question, or for this part of the answer. There's good examples given. Some more examples here. Football even talks about their mental confidence, which was a small part of that area that you got given notes on. And then he moves on. So the next one he's moved on to is monitoring progress. So you see here, point number 2, that's why I've written a 2 there, monitoring progress. Again, I'll just slowly scroll through it so you can read it. But he says what it is, why it's relevant, and how it relates to returning to play. And gives a specific example. The key are these specific examples, boys. I would have started this in a perfect world. He would have started this answer on this line. So, with the next heading, so psychological readiness, but having said that, it's not a big drama. He's underlined it, so it's drawn my attention to it. So he goes on to say what sort of relevant psychological readiness has, and also how it works in terms of them regaining their confidence. So the relationship between an athlete regaining their confidence and being ready to return to play, as opposed to an athlete that hasn't regained his confidence, which wouldn't be ready to return to play. So again, you can see here what he's written, example, and he's written an example in relation to Jared Hayne, and finishes up there with a little bit of an evaluation. The 4th point, the specific warm-up procedures, says why they're doing them, who designs them, what's the purpose, and a specific example. And you can see with these examples, they're just illustrating his understanding. They're nothing groundbreaking, but they are perfect for this sort of answer. And the next step, so point 5, which is why there's 5 there, policies and procedures, or return to play policies and procedures. And you can see here he's written what the procedures should be, and why it's important, who should be making those decisions rather than as opposed to the athlete themselves. In context of this answer, that's probably the weakest area of the answer. Okay, everything else I think is outstanding. That would be the weakest area of this answer. So you could probably improve on that with a specific example. That would put the little cherry on top there. Having said that, that doesn't take away from the overall quality of the entire answer. And the last one here, point 6, is the ethical considerations. So again, he explains what it is, example about Benji Marshall, Just explains where these ethical considerations relate in terms of or their relationship to an athlete returning to play. So just as I said, he just runs through them there and gives an example of Benji Marshall being pressured to play, maybe using painkillers and all that sort of thing. So that is a very, very good answer for question 23B.